Hey everybody, this is Alex, and I'm here with another tutorial. In this case, we're going to be talking about the basics of Adobe Photoshop. The basics of Adobe Photoshop. So for this little demonstration, I'm going to be creating a very basic collage, which is one of the assignments I do in my graphic design class. But certainly you could use what we're talking about here for a movie poster, a book cover, book jacket, and any number of other types of assignments. So really it's just to acquaint you with Photoshop, make sure you know how to navigate the panels, work with layers, bring in images, and just create a very basic design in a canvas here. So just to start things off, I'm going to move aside Photoshop for a second here, move it down here. Hopefully you're familiar with how to open Photoshop on your computer. Depending on which version you're using, you may have different layouts with the panel here. But basically, I created a little folder here, a collage folder that I put on the desktop. Okay, and inside of it are already some images that I found on Google Images. I'm kind of doing a planets, celestial bodies type of thing, so I just found some images of, planets and other, again, celestial items and bodies, so to speak. And basically, it's just to make a very basic. Oh, I also have the space background that I chose. Okay, so one of the first things you may want to do before you start designing anything is to think about what it is and then find your assets. So these are images actually found on Google Images. Now, the thing to be aware of with Google Images, of course, is if you're just downloading other people's images, you're supposed to technically give permission. And if you're not doing that, it's just got to be understood you're doing it for kind of a nonprofit class or, just kind of example for maybe applying for a job. Nothing you can profit from monetarily. Okay. Otherwise, you have to have rights to the images. But anyway, I just kind of search for different images. So in Google, whatever your browser is, whether you're on a Mac or PC, you can go on to, in this case I'm on Chrome, but you can go on to, Windows Explorer and, Internet Explorer on Windows, Internet Explorer, or you could go on Firefox, or you can go on Safari. It doesn't really matter. The big thing is just to go to Google Images. So, if you were searching for it in Google, actually, if you just go to Google, I think there'll be a tab that says Images. But if if you don't see that, just literally search for Google Images, and it should come up. Okay, and then you can go ahead and you can search for a topic. In this case, I said planets. If I want a specific planet, I might say, like Neptune, or maybe Saturn, because I want the one with the ring. Whatever it is, you search for them. And so a bunch of results should pop up. And, you try to make sure you find something that's large enough. And that's something we talk about a lot in my class, the dimensions, the pixel dimensions. If you click on an image, it brings up the big version of it, and you can see the dimensions. So this is 1600 by 746. Not too bad. I mean, you don't want anything to go a little bit too smaller than 600 pixels, really, either direction, unless it's just like a little icon that's going to be on your design, especially if it's like a kind of medium resolution type of thing we're doing here, like a 150 resolution. So anyway, what you do is, again, you just kind of search through and you find the images you want. You click on them. Make sure the big one comes up, okay? And this is how you're going to save it. You either right-click. I'm on a Mac here, but on a PC it's a similar thing. Right-click, or you control-click, and you go to Save Image As, okay? Not Save Link As, not any of these other ones. Save Image As. And then it's just a matter of saving to whatever location. I would save to my collage folder and click Save. Okay, but I already have enough images, so I'm not going to do it. And you should, in my case, I kept it simple. I put the folder on the desktop here, okay, the collage one. If you're not familiar with how to make a new folder, that's something you want to make sure you know. On a Mac, it's as simple as right-clicking or control-clicking and doing new folder, okay? See, I made a new folder here, then you give it a name. So, you just want a place where you're going to store everything, your project and also all your images. So again, the process is you go to Google Images, You know, you go back to the top here, type in whatever you're searching for. I want Pluto. It got demoted. It's no longer a planet. It's a dwarf planet, but I still want it. So I'm going to go there and say I find one I like. Oh, I like this one. In fact, you know what? I might even add this. I'm going to go ahead and add this. So it's a little on the smaller side, but that's okay. So I'm going to, again, on this one, not on the thumbnail, but on the larger one that pops up, right-click or control-click. So this menu pops up, and then you go down and you just do a regular click on Save Image As. And then you would navigate to that folder. If I were in some other folder, I would just go, oh, I'm in the wrong folder. I need to go ahead and navigate to, where am I going? Desktop. Okay, here we go. Collage. And then I go Save. Okay? That's how you do it. So once you collect your images, that's really the first part. It's just getting all the images. I mean, you may still add to them later for whatever your project is. You may say, oh, I still need to add more, but it's good to kind of collect an initial batch. Then we go into Photoshop, and then we're going to start, bring it up here. Then we're going to start getting into the basics here. So Photoshop is open. Usually something, it'll look like this, or you might see, I have it on list view here, but if I clicked on this other icon, I could see the actual icons of all my recent projects. So I could either go to New here, or I could go to File, New. Either way. Let's go ahead and click on New, and it should bring up that sort of welcome box, New Document. And in this box, it's coming up a little slow just because I'm screen recording at the same time, of course. This is where you're going to plug in all your information. Now, what I recommend my students do for the projects in our class, which are basically being designed for a portfolio, is to do something that's close to kind of paper-sized, the dimensions, the 8.5 by 11. And it can be either the portraiture direction or the landscape direction. So I'm going to go up here to this print button here, okay, and click on that. And once you click on print, you'll see some presets. So I want to be on letter here. When I'm on letter, conveniently you see the width and height are there, 8.5 by 11. Resolution, I'm actually going to bring it down to 150 just because 300 is very, very sharp, very large. It might be what you need it for if you're going to print it on a larger size, but you know, for something like this, I'm just going to put in my portfolio, and there's a limit to how zoomed in anyone's ever going to be on it. I think 150 is sufficient. You can leave everything else default. Sometimes I like to add, instead of 8.5, I do 8.75 or 11, and also 11.25. I actually add basically a little, whoops, should be 11.25. I add a little bit of a bleed margin there, just so that this is sort of a standard thing. It exceeds the length of a page, because if you were to print it to the very edge, you don't want to see a white trim. But this is optional. It could still be 8.5 by 11. I just added that extra 1/4 of an inch, and we're making sure we're in inches here. Now this is what I was talking about when it comes to portraiture or landscape. The portrait direction is going to be, it's taller, right? The height is, there's more height and there's less width. Or we can switch to landscape, and you see it swaps these values here. I'm actually going to do landscape, I think, for this one, because for my portfolio, I like to have a little bit of variety. And the dimensions for this particular one, I just want to make it a little stouter and make the width longer, the height not quite as tall. Okay, so then you click Create. And what you have once you do that is your blank canvas. Okay, you've got a couple other panels here, so sometimes you may have other things open up you're not using at the moment. You can kind of close that kind of stuff. I just want to keep it basic here. All I really want is this, is the layers panel. Okay, now let's just say the layers panel wasn't there. By the way, I'm hitting these little X's in the corner. That's how I'm closing these panels. But let's say the layers wasn't there. You just go up to Window, and then you go down to Layers, and it would come back. Okay, and I could go to Windows and Color and bring the color panel if I wanted to. By the way, sometimes, let's say I wanted to unnest a panel, like I wanted to get this swatches panel away from this color, I could go ahead and click on it and drag it separate, so it's a floating panel. That may happen. You may have layers attached to swatches, and you want to get layers unnested. You just click on layers and bring it away like that. Okay. Because all you really need for this assignment is layers. Unless we're doing something involving colors, I might bring up some of my other panels, but I'm trying to keep it very simple right now. So just have your layers up. We'll have also our tools panel on the side here. So if you don't see tools, you just go ahead and you click on Window, and then you click on Tools, and it brings up your Tools panel. Okay, so that's a little panel you'll usually have on the left side here. Whoop. Sometimes you see it like this. This little arrow here can make it a I guess we'd say two column tools, or you can do one column. Okay, and based on the tool you're on, you'll see that the control panels, this area right up here, see where my mouse is, the controls may change. Okay, and then of course we have our drop downs way at the very top. Okay, so what I basically want to do at this point is I want to bring in some of my images. So right now you can see I have a default white background. They give you that by default. If I wanted to, I could change the color of this. There is this little paint bucket tool here, which I could choose. And then based on whatever is queued up here is the front foreground swatch. Right now it's on white. So of course if I click it won't do anything because we're just doing white on white. But if I were to click on that, and then this little pop-up color picker comes, I could choose another color, like red, and then I could click and I can add red. So if you want, you can have a color for your background if you want to do it that way. But in my case, I know what my background is going to be. It's going to be that star field. So what I want to do is I want to bring in that star kind of spacey image. Now there's a couple ways to bring things into Photoshop. If you had used my Against the Clock series books that I recommend, the first assignment shows you all sorts of options under File, such as File Open, which is the most basic one, or you might see File Place Embedded, Place Linked. I'm going to keep things simple for now and just use File Open. Okay, just File Open. So go to File Open, and now it's going to probably force me to navigate to the desktop here, and I'm going to go to my Collage folder, and here are all my images. And up here, there's different ways to display it on a Mac. Again, if you're on a PC, it might be a little different, but I can go ahead to this little tab here, and I can actually see a little preview of the image on the side here. So I want to go ahead and I want to bring in this image here. Okay, space signals. It's like a backdrop where all the planets are going to go on top of. So I go ahead and I click Open. And when I click Open, just click OK to that. It's fine. Sometimes you get other messages, and if you don't understand them, honestly, like it's color profile stuff and so forth, just click OK. So here we are. Now notice what's happened here. I actually have up here what are called two tabs. If I click on the original untitled right here, this is my workspace that I created. And if I click back here on space signals, it brings me to this image. So I actually have two different windows here represented by tabs. I could also click this and I could unnest them. And now this is a floating window. And I can also drag it back up and I could renest it. But that's basically just to show you it's two different things open. You'll notice when I'm on this particular image, it acquires its own layers panel, where it's the background layer is the very image. So don't get confused. Some people suddenly will be on an image and they start working with layers on there and they're like, what happened to everything else? You have to go back here. This is the layers panel we care about. Okay. So I want to see these two side by side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the window panel at the top, window, and I'm going to go to arrange, window arrange, and I'm going to do this option here, the two up vertical. I click that, basically put some side by side. Then I'm going to use the very basic tool here, the move tool, click it, okay? And then what you basically do is if you click on this image here on the right, if you hold the click, I can actually drag it over and just go ahead and drop it right, whoop, didn't get it that time. There we go. Drop it right over here. And now you'll notice there's a second layer above the background layer. I've added a layer. Now if I click back on this tab, as you can see, this one just has itself as the layer. I don't need this one anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and click that little X there to close that one. So now we're back to just one panel, one window really here, the untitled one. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do a file save as. I just want to start saving. Whenever you save the first time, it's a save as. And I recommend saving inside of that same folder, the collage one. I'm going to call it whatever, Alex's collage. You could call it space collage, whatever, Notice .psd. Make sure it's in Photoshop format. Needs to be a Photoshop file. It's a Photoshop file we're working with. Okay. Now look at this. The problem here is, of course, this is not the dimensions of this particular workspace I have going here. It's not filling it up. So what do? I have to stretch it a little bit to fit. So to do that, I have a couple options. I can either hit Command T. Okay, and you see this little box up here. Command T on my keyboard. On a PC, it would be Control T. On a PC, it's Control T, but on a Mac, it's Command T. And it would bring up this resize box. And I'm going to hit the little no smoking sign here because I don't want to do that. I'm going to try it this way. Edit, free transform. That's another way. You can do it through the drop downs. Edit, free transform. Edit, free transform. And again, brings up this little kind of bounding box. And basically what you can do is you can grab the edges here and you can stretch it. Okay. If you wanted to constrain proportions, you would hold Shift. Holding the Shift key while you do it, as you can see, makes it evenly go up and down. Now, something like this that's a little more abstracted, I think it's okay to warp it a bit. So I'm going to stretch it. I mean, it's stars. I don't think it's going to be quite as noticeable that I'm doing that. But certainly if it was a person's face or something, you wouldn't want to do this. You'd want to constrain proportions and hold Shift. So I got it to fit nicely there. Now I can either hit Return or I can hit the check mark. So there's my nice background. So we're already on the way. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save. Okay, now I want to start populating this background with some of the planets. So I'm going to go ahead and do File Open, as we did before, and I'm going to go ahead and bring in all the other images. I'm going to actually bring all of them in. Ready? You ready for this? So what I want to do here, let me go ahead and make it a little, yeah, so here we go. So I already have space signals, and this is Alex's collage, the PSD file, so I don't want those two. I want everything else. So what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to start right here on solar flare, and I'm going to go up to the 960 by 01, and I'm going to hold Shift, and it chooses all of this, everything in between it. But I don't want Alex's collage included. So now I just hold the Command key and click that one, and it disincludes it. Okay, so that's just a short. You could also bring them in one at a time if you want, but I just feel like bringing them all in at once here so we can get things moving. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 images coming in. So I'm going to go ahead and click Open. It's going to bring open a lot of tabs. Let's give it a moment here to open all those. Yeah, look at this. Look at all these tabs I got. All these different great images. Okay, so I want to bring these all into my main workspace here. So I'm going to go back up to Window, Arrange. And the most you can go up to is 6 up, but there are a couple other options. I actually think what I want to do in this case is I want to go ahead and I want to just float all the windows, okay? Or, you could also consolidate. Oh, no, that returns and consolidate all the tabs, but there's a couple options. There's also tile. Yeah, there's a couple ways to do this. Tile would go ahead and probably, now that I think of it, that would probably be the best way because it's bringing them all up as basically the 7 windows that we're talking about here. So yeah, probably tile if you exceed 6. You could also do float all windows if you just want them all free floating. But anyway, this is where my workspace is, right? Alex's Collage PSD is here. As you can see, it's been renamed. So one at a time, with the Move tool selected, I'm just going to go ahead and drag and drop it in, and then close that particular window. Drag and drop it in. Whoops. And then close that particular window. Right? One at a time. Sometimes if you don't get it, just try it again. You really have to click in there and hold that click and drag. Sometimes it just, for whatever reason, doesn't quite get it. Okay, there we go. Close that one. Oh, you know what it is? I think sometimes I wasn't making the window active first. That definitely helps. When I say make it active, I mean click the window first one time, then hold the click and drag it up. That's what I was doing wrong. So there we go. Now look at this. Look at all these layers, all the way up to layer 7. It's great, right? And their original background layer. Now I probably don't even need this original background. You could delete it if you wanted. You can just drag it to the trash, but whatever. It's just a blank kind of white layer there. So what I want to do now is I just basically want to, one at a time, move things around here. So you saw what just happened. I was actually trying to move something and I was on the wrong layer. Whatever layer is selected, as long as auto select is not clicked, and I recommend not clicking auto select. So long as auto select is not clicked, whatever layer I'm on, that's the layer that I move. So I'm on this layer 7, so I'm moving that one. If I were on layer 6, now I'm moving that one. If I were on layer 5, now I'm moving that one. Also, whatever layer is on top is the one you're going to see. So right now we see layer 7 here, but if I were going to go ahead and drag layer 6 up, oops, double click that. Layer 6 is now on top. And if you really want to get fancy with it, as we've learned, some of you who have taken the classes with me, you can go ahead and double click and rename these if I want to say what particular planet these are. You know, this one, for instance, I'm actually not sure what that top one is. This one I know, the one underneath, I'm pretty sure is Earth here, so I'll just say Earth. I'm not going to name them all, but you just hover over it, double click right there. Make sure you don't double click over here, because that'll take you to layer styles, a different panel, which we use for certain things, but not in this case. So again, I'm keeping this very simple. Just want to cut these out and find the best method to do it. There's also these little eyes here, so what I'm going to do is, one at a time, I just want to hide. Actually, I'm going to keep the top layer visible. That way I can kind of isolate what I'm working on. Okay, so I'm working on just this top layer, and I want to cut this out. Now, this is a really good thing here. The background is black. A black background is what you, or a consistent color background, I should say, is really what you want, because it makes it easy to cut. What I recommend using is the magic wand. Now, usually it's, if you count down 4, it's around here. Sometimes it might be on the quick selection tool, which is queued up there. So if I click it now, I'm actually on the quick selection, the wrong tool. What I have to do is hold the click, and it brings up another menu, a little sub-menu. So this will happen with certain tools. So I'm going to choose the magic wand, click on the black, okay, and as you can see, it makes a nice selection there. And as I've said many times in my classes, now I could hit the delete button, right, which will remove the background. That's nice, but I really prefer to mask, because masking never permanently removes anything. It also lets me kind of fine-tune my selection if I want to. So I'm going to go ahead with the layer selected. I'm going to go to this little guy here at the bottom of the layer panel. That's the Add Layer Mask button. And I'm going to click that. And like, oh no, it got rid of the wrong one. That's okay. You've made this little mask here. Just double click on it. Brings up your little mask panel here, and just click the invert button, and then click OK. Okay. The other thing I could have done if I go back, by the way, one of your best friends is going to be edit step backwards. I'm going to step backwards a couple times. Okay. There's a shortcut for it too, Command Option Z on a Mac. If I go back here, I could have also done select inverse, and then I could have added a mask, and it would have already basically been the reverse and removed the black rather than left it. But again, you can always double click on it. Now notice if I double click on it, it brought me to this kind of refining panel here. And what I could do is I can add a little bit of smoothness. I can add a little bit of feathering, a little bit of contrast, shift edge, just little things like that, so that what basically happens is it kind of smooths the edge a little bit. Now, because some of the shadow fell on this side of the planet, it almost looks like the planet has a bite taken out of it. So, that's something like, okay, what do I want to do about that? In that case, maybe I want to disguise that a little bit. So if you remember when I double clicked, in this case, not on the name, but just on the layer kind of over here, I went to this nice little layer styles panel, which we did by accident before. This is where I can add some things like drop shadow. And what I think I might add here is a little bit of, you just have to kind of play around with this. I'm going to add some inner shadow. Okay, click on inner shadow, and then I'm going to adjust the size and so forth, and where the shadow falls in particular. Make it a little darker. I'm thinking this will help a little bit with kind of selling a little more of that edge being missing there. So I did a little bit of inner shadow. Now I'm going to do a little bit of drop shadow, and I'll put the drop shadow again kind of favoring that side. Okay, whoop. Just got to move the angle here so it's a little bit more down there. Make it a little richer. Yeah, there we go. look at that. It's a nice little drop shadow coming. Okay, increase the size a little bit. Whoop. In the spread. Whoa, too far, too far. Sometimes some remnants of the actual cut can come back. So that wasn't too bad. I'm still not 100% content with it. You know, you could, if you wanted, go ahead to like the brush. And in this case, I could go and I could choose a black color, and maybe I could come in and just, you know, oh, let me adjust my brush size a little bit. There's also, if you want to zoom in, it's Command plus, Command plus. Zooming out is Command minus, or you can use a little magnifying glass tool here. But I just want to paint a little bit of black in here, just because I'm kind of just want to sell it a little more. And maybe what I'll do is, this is getting a little more advanced, so don't worry if you don't fully understand this. But I'm going to go ahead and make my brush a little bit soft. Oh, it is soft. Okay, maybe my flow a little lower, and just kind of a little bit. I think I need a bit, even less flow. Just a little bit. Flow is how pronounced it's going to be. Just kind of a little bit, create a little shadow effect here. Okay. There we go. Knowing me, I'll be working on this for forever, so I'm going to stop there. Now there's this little bit I can't get because I'd have to create another layer because it's not going to allow me to go past where I've cut out. Okay, so what I'm going to do for that is I'm actually down here, there's a little add layer button I'm going to click. So I made another layer on top here. And on this layer, I'm going to add a little bit of painting. Oop, now I'm going to go back to 100% flow and a little bit of black there. And then, it's trying to draw it kind of round, but I'm not being great about it. Okay, not bad, not bad. It's a little bit, you know, I could probably fix it more. But now let me see if I can find a nice place. Whoa. Oh, that's a good point there. I need to move both of them if I want to move them, right? Layer 7 and this layer 6. So let's say I want to move both at the same time. I just hold shift and I can choose both and I can move them. So I'm going to move this one maybe down here because if it's in a darker area, I think it'll hide it a little more. Yeah, look at that. See how it's a little bit less conspicuous, that edge? Okay, so I cut one out. That's all done. So let's bring back the earth. And I can see this will have a similar... What I'm going to do with this one, just to make it easier on myself, is maybe go outside the boundaries with it. But I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, I'm going to... well, first, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to shrink it down with the Command T, Control T on a PC, Command T on a Mac, or Edit, Free Transform. I want to constrain proportions, so I'm going to hold Shift, drag the edge, shrink it down. Okay, and then kind of move it up here a little bit, something like that. And then let's go to our friend the magic wand, click the black, and then let's go ahead and select inverse. Okay, because I want to get rid of the black, and then hit the add mask button. Bam. And then I'm going to move this one so it's actually off the edge. Oh, look, I missed a spot. Haha. That's okay. That one I'm just going to go ahead and hit a delete on. Just did a little selection with, this is our friend, the rectangular marquee. Another way of making a selection. Then I hit delete. Okay, so I put the earth there. If I want, again, I can refine the edge if I want to smooth it a bit and that kind of fun stuff, just to make it so it's not quite as hard an edge, just by double-clicking the mask. Okay, then we bring up layer 5. This one might be a little trickier because I see, whoops, I was on the wrong layer. There we go. This one is a little trickier because it's got, you know, not the most consistent background there, okay? So you'll probably notice if you hit with the magic wand, it's still kind of leaving a little bit there. So I'm going to go ahead and do my select inverse, hit the add mask button. This one I'm probably going to go into double-click the mask, probably add quite a bit of feather and smoothing because I just need to blend it more. See if that helps it. Yeah, see, it's still a little bit not kind of great there. And also it brought back some of this, this edge here. By the way, if that happens, you see this very thin black edge there. you could go ahead and click on the mask. This is a trick. You actually go to the brush tool, make sure the mask is selected. Not this, not the foreground actual icon, but the mask of the layer. Make sure you're on black. You can hit this little switch here if you're not to go to black, and then you just paint over, and you're basically adding black to the mask. So this happens sometimes when you really turn up the feather really high. It brings back a little bit of the edge that you had, because it's kind of feathering the edge that you got rid of. So what I might do is maybe go into layer styles here and, I'll do some inner shadow, kind of like I did with the other one, hoping that will, oh, I did inner, actually, that's a good, maybe I accidentally hit inner glow. Do we like that? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I'll do a mix of a couple things. Inner glow and a little bit of inner shadow. And you just have to play around with it and get kind of the best results you want. Hopefully it kind of helps sell it a little more. In my case, I'm not really liking this area here. What I might do is click on the mask. Again, a little trick, you turn your flow down. The lower the flow, the more you can kind of blend it. Be on the brush, make sure black is selected, mask is selected, and then you can go ahead and you can kind of just, nibble away at that edge a little bit just so it kind of fades it. And this is supposed to be kind of a celestial body, so if it's got a little bit of, it's like kind of going around the edge here. I'll leave a little bit of that kind of yellowish green that's coming out, almost like energy pulsing out. Yeah, it's not too bad. Okay, so then we got Saturn next, right? Oop, I'm going to go ahead and hide some of these other ones just so they're out of the way. Saturn should be hopefully not too bad. I mean, hard to really say with the rings if that's going to be an issue, but I'm going to go ahead and try it. Select inverse, and then we add the mask. Oh, I was on the wrong layer. Look at that. If that happens, make sure I undid it. There we go. Now, if I really wanted to get fancy, I might go in and try to get rid of this black here, which you could do. But again, just for time, I'm going to keep this kind of moving along here. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Now, this one's a little trickier because there's not quite the consistency of color. But let's see how well the magic wand works. Not too bad. You can also try the quick selection, the other one, the one that was initially up. That one you kind of click and it kind of feels its way along. But as I can see, if I'm doing it, actually, yeah, see, it selected everything. Okay, so maybe Magic Wand is the way to go. It's just intruding a little bit on what I want there. Now, what do I do in that case? Up here, there's a little thing called tolerance. I'm going to turn it down to 10 in this case from 32. And hopefully in that case, as you can see, oh yeah, look at that. With the lower tolerance, it's not choosing as much by default. So it's not perfect, but it did, as you can see, almost isolate it there. I'm going to do a select inverse. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a mask. Now for these little bits that were left behind, you just click the mask. Go to the regular brush, regular brush, not the history brush. Make sure you're on black. And then just paint away. Oop, turn my flow back up. If you want to adjust your brush size here. Shortcut, by the way, is the brackets. The brackets can make your, oops. Doesn't think I'm on it there. The brackets can make it bigger or smaller. I'm hitting them on my keyboard here. And yeah, just come in and kind of get rid of that extra residue there. As you get closer, you might want to zoom in and kind of shrink your brush down. Okay. See, look at that. I actually intruded on it too much. Now, if you do that, switch to white. Black cuts away. White, if you're on the mask, again, the mask, white brings it back. It's crazy. That's why I like masking. You never permanently lose anything. Probably I have to make my brush a little bit harder. That's what's happening. It's getting too much of a powdery look here. So I'm on black. Let me go back to black. Okay. Something like that. Again, I'm only going to spend so much time just trying to move along here. You could also then again feather it and so forth. And then the last one is this guy. And this is once again a situation where yeah, you can just magic wand it. Select inverse, and add the mask. Oops, I did it again. Got to be on the right layer. There it is. And I might want to do an edit transform and maybe like a free transform, or I could go to rotate and I can just kind of rotate it a bit because maybe I just want to have it come off the page here a little bit. There we go. And so I'm going to move it over here, and it's going to be the one coming off the edge here. Whoops. Yeah. Okay, let's bring everything back. Hit the eyes, and let's see what we got here. I haven't really positioned things too much. Some things I haven't resized either, so... but yeah, it's looking like something of a collage here. Probably I want to shrink this one down. Saturn is kind of dominating right now. Yeah, maybe this nice little red one here. And then let's bring this guy back. Oops, put that one there. Make sure you're on the right layer. So this one would be right here, yes. And I want something else right here. So I'm going to go back to Google and I'm going to try to find something that's a little more complicated to cut out just to make this last one a little trickier. You know what I mean? What's one that would be hard to cut out? Looking at planets here, which probably the magic one wouldn't work on. There's a couple there. I really want to find one that's you could tell that, oh good, oh here we go. Look at this. How are we going to cut that out? Look at that star. All the magic wand's not going to catch that, right? I'm going to right click, save image as. Again, this might be something you're going to do if you're going to add more to your design here. So go ahead and save. And then I'm going to do a quick file open. And where did I save it? Should be here somewhere. It's a new one. Here it is. Oh, and my battery is running low. That's okay. We're almost done here. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to do a little shortcut here just to move things along. A copy paste. Now in this case, what you need to do is you'd probably have to just erase this, or just add basically a mask by default, and then just go to the brush, and then just paint with black. That's all you got to do. Just paint with black on it, and you can cut it out. Okay? So that would be like if you have a more complicated background. Again, I'm doing it very rough here, but you could kind of get the idea. Yay! And then you could still, oh, I went too far. Go back to white. But then you could still add smoothing and all that kind of fun stuff, after the fact. Whoops. And there it is. Okay, so there it is. Go ahead and do a save. And there's my collage. So hopefully this tutorial has been helpful. And yeah, we'll see.